Today I'm trying my first oil painting. I've only done acrylic in the past, and I wanted to challenge myself and see how different oil painting is. The first time I realized that this was going to be a lot different than acrylic is when I was mixing the colors. Even just squeezing it out of the tube, it's a lot thicker and the colors were harder to mix, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But first thing I noticed when I was painting it was how far a little bit of paint went. So this was kind of interesting. The texture kind of feels like you're painting with a melted crayon. You put a little bit on the brush and it just keeps going, and I like it in comparison to acrylic because before, when I would do large areas of one color, it would take 3 or 4 coats, but it covers all of the canvas right away. So I'm going through, I just did a little brush just to get used to it for this part, and my theme for this painting is going to be like a cool abstract kind of space, or I don't even know, just like an abstract doodle trippy Route 66. So I wanted to do a cool Route 66 themed with some desert aspects, some cool kind of space aspects. I wanted to make it really interesting and try and use my abstract doodle style with the oil painting and see how it turns out. I'm just starting off doing the few roads. I'm going to do a few to kind of split the painting in different sections. I like doing that because then I can make small little landscapes or different details within these sections, and it almost splits it up into smaller paintings within it. So I'm doing that, and it's a good way to get used to how the oil paint is actually covering the canvas. I didn't want to do a detailed or intricate design when I was first learning the paints. And I was also surprised because the oil paints smell like oil. I know that seems obvious, but it's very strong. And when you pour out the paint too, there's actual oil in it, which maybe I was just super unaware of that. I thought it was more like oil based in it, which I guess it is, but yeah, it's really interesting texture, and I'm kind of learning how far it spreads and realize that I mixed a lot of this gray together, which is nice because the oil paints are more expensive, but with the amount it covers on the canvas, it's not really that bad when you think about how many paintings you can do with just a small set. Something I also realized early on with this one is that oil paints take a lot longer to dry. Obviously, this is known beforehand and I knew about this, but I didn't realize just how long it took. I thought it would be overnight or, maybe 2 days later, depending on how much paint is in a section. But I did the road section, and even painting it 2 days later, it was still wet. So I realized that this painting is going to take probably a few weeks, especially with the amount of detail that I want to do. And I'll have to wait maybe up to a week for some areas to dry before I put on specific details that I don't want blended. So that'll be interesting to see how different colors blend with the paint drying in different ways. And that also means I'll probably split this video up into a few parts. I've done some videos where I do even 1 or 2 parts, but the second part's around 40 minutes. So I'm gonna try splitting up videos into maybe 10 to 20 minutes at the most and do that. This one might take quite a few parts, but it'll be interesting, and I would love to hear any feedback on if you prefer longer videos or if you prefer smaller parts to each painting. So now I'm going in and doing some cactuses. I want to do some classic that look like a cactus, or then some like this one that are more abstract. And I might add a interesting face or use it as a element that I can add other details and abstract doodles off of. So I'm doing that for this one and seeing how this green covers. I'll probably use 2 or 3 different greens for each one. And then this one in the other side of the painting, I'm doing a more traditional looking cactus, and I'm doing the first part with a darker green. Again, this painting is super fun because I'm learning about how oil paints work, and it's interesting how much they cover and how it doesn't dry. So I'm used to the acrylic ones where sometimes if I'm painting a large section, by the time I'm done it, I can go back and do the first part and it's dry already. But this one, it's cool because I think I'll be able to do a lot of cool blending. I wanted to do an abstract kind of mountain range that you'd see around sunset on Route 66. So I'm doing that in 2 different sections, and I'll probably use that as a base and add some cool little abstract details to each of them after. The goal for this one is to try and do a lot of blending in different colors in those little mountain sections and use that as a place where I can experiment on that. So I'm starting that mountain range area with some yellow. I wanted that to be a kind of bright base, and I'll probably end up doing 5 or 6 colors in it and just keep layering until I'm happy with how it looks. I'm interested to see how much they mix and how much they blend. I'll wait for it to dry a little bit, and I didn't put it on as thick as the gray, but we'll see how that looks. Now I'm doing like a little trailer, and I thought it'd be kind of cool, that Route 66 theme with a little trailer. I'll probably do a little car, and as some of these background colors are done and the sections are dry, I'll do more of those themed aspects to bring it together. So I'm doing a kind of little trailer camper car, and I thought it'd be interesting to not have it on the road because I didn't want it to get washed out, and the paint is still wet on the gray. So I did it over there for now. I'll probably do one on the road as well, but I have to wait for that to fully dry. And then now I'm doing a little cityscape. I thought it'd be kind of cool to do it in the corner to look like it's the end of the city coming into the highway area where there's not much. And I'm just continuing to add some colors onto this cactus, and mainly just seeing how the green blends with each other and doing a few different greens and making it look like the shape I want. I do want it to be an abstract one, but I do want it to have some kind of shape and have bolder colors depending on what background I use for it. So I want it to be noticeable. So I'm going in and doing that with the darker gray. And by now I'm feeling more confident with the oil paints. It is really fun, and you can tell they're high quality and it feels really nice to paint with. So it'll be cool to see if I can do the abstract deals that I want to, or the abstract details that I want to when I'm done, and see how it turns out and if I'm able to create the theme that I want to while using oil paint. So now I'm adding some yellow into this kind of like rock landscape area. It'll be the first of many colors, but I wanted to add it as a base color because I wasn't sure how dark the other colors would come on. So we'll come back to that and mix in a bunch. Then I'm doing a little roller coaster for this car. I thought it would look cool to have it on something that's not a road to kind of give that trippy Route 66 feel. I want this to be almost like a fever dream of Route 66. So I want things to not really make sense and still be that fun, abstract, kind of creepy vibe, but I want to make sure that there are elements of the Route 66, like with the landscape like this. So I'm going in and I'm doing lining throughout this landscape because I want to have the paint wet so that when I go in and do some of the other colors, it'll mix with the black and give a bit of a darker feel. I don't want too much of the painting a bright yellow because I'll be using it as other aspects within it. So we'll come back to that. I'm doing another one of the cactuses that's more planned out, not as abstract as that first one, and going in and doing some more colors within that cactus. A lot about this part of the painting is still learning how different oil paints mix. It is super fun to paint with, but there are some challenges, especially coming from acrylic, where I'm used to drying and having the paint dry within a few minutes, and I can go over and do a section. Even a few days into this painting, there are some parts that are still wet, and if I try to put anything on, it mixes not really the way I want to. Sometimes it's nice and cool to have that mixing, but some of the smaller details I want to be crisp and not have any type of blending in it. So it'll be interesting to see how long it takes. I think some of the areas like the street, like the highway, I probably put too much paint on and I didn't need to paint it that thick. I'm realizing that as I'm looking at it, and it's still a little bit wet, and there's some other areas that I did even yesterday that are dry already, so maybe it's how thick I did it, but we'll see and kind of learn as we go. I'm putting in a darker brown in this landscape. I think it kind of looks good with the yellow, and yeah, we're just gonna keep adding colors. That'll be my test area to see on how the blending works and if I need to make it brighter or darker. Then I wanted to do a little triangle shape here, and I wanted to make it into something cool. So I'm doing it as purple. I might end up changing it, but I thought it'd be a good base color. And as I have the purple out, I'm adding a little bit of texture into the red part of the sky. At first I had this clown hair going upwards, but I didn't like that. I wanted to keep it on the side, so I'm just going over and covering it with white. This is definitely where I also saw more of the challenge of, even though this was the next day, it still just kind of blended in, which I think will be good for some of the other things I want to do, but these smaller details, it definitely shows that I need to be more patient and plan some of these paintings out almost a week in advance for which sections I want to do. So for these ones, I might need to start doing a section of the base color, and in the next few days, and I'm working on a completely different section, wait for that to dry, then go in and paint the small details on the section after not painting anything on it for a few days. I also think at the beginning, I was used to the acrylic and how thick I needed to layer on the paint. So that could be it too. Maybe I need to, or I can be a lot lighter with how much paint I use, unless I'm using a texture with that purpose. But this is a fun one just to have a bunch of different sections that I'm using different techniques on and just learn how this oil paint works. It is a lot of fun and I like the way it's looking. And now I need to see the space that I have and see what other themed Route 66 elements I want to add. I have the cactus, I have the little building that will be a hotel, I have the clown to kind of give that like clown motel feel. I have the little trailer and the car, but I think I want to add like a cool, almost like an ocean theme. I feel like I saw I think it was a short film or an episode of some TV show where there was like a cool Route 66. I don't know if they had a dream or they were in some weird alternate reality, but there were ocean creatures out there. So I'm gonna add something there. I think that'd be kind of cool. I don't know why, but when I saw this triangle, I thought I could make a cool squid or octopus type thing. It's not quite the right shape for a jellyfish, but I might make it just something. I'll have really one big eye on it and see how that looks. But right now I'm just being mindful of what areas are still dry or still wet from the oil paint, and just filling in some areas where the colors don't clash, and keeping in the back of my mind what themed elements I want to add to it. By this point, I think I'm at day 4 of painting this painting, where I'm just kind of layering on some colors and learning about how the oil paint covers it. So I'll probably split this painting up into a few different parts. I've done that in the past, and sometimes I have one smaller part at the beginning, and then I just end up doing a second part that's 40 minutes. But for this one, I think I really want to keep under 20 minutes per part and give a good insight and show the whole process of painting it. So let me know what you think, if you like the shorter videos and the shorter parts, or if you like it longer parts, like 30 or 40 minutes. I'd love to hear any feedback. Now I'm just going through and doing other little details on the cactus that I have there. It's mainly dry, but I'm using a black outline just to kind of get that shape that I want. That is what I really like about this oil paint, is that I can go in and put a lining on it and it blends a little bit just so it looks more natural. I think I can do a lot of cool blending in the sky as well. So I think once I really learn how these oil paints blend with each other, I can use that to plan out more of these kind of cool abstract elements, and maybe I'll do one that's way more abstract and doesn't really have a theme, just to play with the blending and see how it looks without any type of thought of what I want it to look like, because then I can just kind of be more free with it and see what cool colors or cool aspects I can make just by the way it naturally blends. So that'll be cool for the next one to see how that works. But at this point of the painting right now, I'm just going through and picking some colors that I think go well in those locations and for the details that I chose them to be in. And I might change them. I might go over and blend, which is nice. That's the good thing about this oil paint, is if there is a color that clashes with another one, I can change it or lighten it up or make it darker. So that'll be cool to see as the painting gets closer to being finished. But I really like how this top area with the mountain range is looking. So that's kind of a fun way that I was able to really try the blending. And I'm going in and doing the same thing with this little trailer. I thought it'd be cool to have kind of an old weathered look to it. So yeah, this has been a really fun first part of this painting, and thank you for watching, and I'll probably post the next part in a few days.